it's a really complex plugin. It's such a complex processor that this is based on. There's so many elements, and then to get it all working as an instrument again, that's a whole different thing, because you start with all the parts and then you put them all together, and then you have to figure out how can we make this fun to play. And the problem with lines is, of course, that it's an effect that also doubles as an instrument with feedback. And that, yeah, and that alone, I mean, you know that it's so hard to like do something like that, because all the DAWs they wanted to be either an instrument or an effects. And with Fluss we did like 3 different versions, so it's like clear. So okay, this is the recorder, this is the processor, this is the instrument, which is very clear. But this wouldn't work for lines, because this is all based on the interaction between like live input and then the feedback that comes into it and the internal generators. So we decided to make it an effect only, and that was a big decision. And then trying to do feedback right in digital, that it sounds as good as analog, that was another thing. And Carlo had me listening to like so many different math problems, I called them, because he had all these different sine by sine, cosine, all these different, like 6 different algorithms used for shaping of like overdrive and stuff. I was like, okay, so I guess this is what I'm doing for the day. It was so cool in the end. But yeah, that was so crucial, all this fine tuning to make it sound under these extreme circumstances that feedback is, when you're overloading the system, to make it sound good. And also to be able to do these tiny little bird songs. That was my main test, because the original has all these little tropical birds in there, and that we managed to do that with a plugin is that's my most favorite part of it. So the original, that's the Axel Telephone Line Simulator. And that's something that I just stumbled upon by chance on eBay, because that's something that I do, is I simply browse through eBay looking for things that could potentially be interesting. And therefore,
the other thing you do is make the price of everything cool on eBay go up massively, right?
yeah, I mean,
sellers must love it when you stumble across one of their items.
yeah, I mean, there are, but that's a whole different discussion. But many of these things, nobody knew that they would actually music. Like this thing, there was nothing. Nobody said that this could be an instrument. The only thing that I found, like when I researched this, was the patent. No, that was later. That was later. Somebody else found the patent for this on Google Patents. But the only thing that I could find when I first considered buying it was like that it was also posted on Matrix Synth, like an auction post, as they do on Matrix Synth. So I was like, okay, nobody ever like used this for music as far as I'm concerned. But I just looked at it, and I tried to zoom as best as I could on those grainy eBay photos. And there was a thing that interested me very much, because it said frequency shift. And frequency shifters is something that I've always wanted in analog. But analog frequency shifters are super expensive, because it's a not easy process to do it right, and it's very niche, but it's very crucial to like the sound of classic electronic music. So the stuff that came out of Cologne and IRCAM and all of these places in the 50s and 60s. Frequency shifters, really important. And then I just thought, okay, I'm gonna buy it. Of course, it arrived half broken, but what I heard from it was enough to convince me, okay, I need to get this fixed up. And my tech spent a lot of time fixing this Axel Line Simulator up to get it working again. And what it does when it's actually working, it's basically a tool for communications in the 70s. It's meant to test if a signal gets through a telephone line or a modem line. So you put a message in, and then you can mess with that message by adding pulses, little clicks, you add noise, you add jitter, you shift the frequency, you filter it. You have bandpass filters that simulate like the bandpass limited transmission lines. And then you can see, okay, so what comes out in the end after all of this, is the message still intact? So this was used for like transmitting digital dates, for example, date information. So But the fun thing about this unit is that it has like live buttons for like messing with the sound for phase, amp, and dropout. So I must have imagined like, okay, give me them. It's like engineers being there. Okay, send me the message, and another engineer was like, deet, 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 messing it up, and they had probably some fun with that. And the beautiful thing is this all works in audio rate. And when I used it, I was already okay. So this is like a fantastic lo-fi effect. This is like the mother of all lo-fi effects. But then I started, because it has banana jacks. Banana jacks are so wonderful because you can stack them. You can put them together. And so I routed the output back into the input, and then that is where that instrument truly exploded for me. It became a synthesizer because suddenly, thanks to all the way this was constructed, very high quality parts, everything started to sing, and I heard these little birds. I heard these telecommunication. I heard chirps. I heard alien sounds, and it had a texture that very, very much reminds me of one of my favorite synthesizers of all time, the Synthi AKS. So absolutely beautiful electronic textures. And yeah, that's when I knew, okay, this is a keeper. And I'm looking at it all the time because it's sitting right here under my desk at a very prominent place. And I use this a lot in sound design and stuff like that. And when Carlos saw like the video that I made on this, he said, "Yeah, we need to do this." And I said, "Yeah, I agree." But yeah, that was the start of this. And yeah, and the cool thing is, so about this also is like with a plugin we could go way further than this instrument ever could do, because the frequency shifter on this was very limited. It could just do like 50 hertz up, 60 hertz down or something like that. So just like enough to emulate like a line going bad. But for the plugin we could of course go basically unlimited. And at least until it reaches the limits that you can reach without using the oversampling in high quality modes. So and we added all the stuff that is fun and added stuff that made it more like an instrument. And that was okay. That's train of thought.
By the sound of things, you might well have been the first person to plug the output of this back into the input again, right?
Exactly. I mean, this is definitely one thing that I really enjoy about this whole process of finding these things that are not meant to make music. It feels like exploring new ground. And I wanted to keep this spirit alive with the plugin, so that the feedback is there, so people can explore things that I think I can't think of, because there's so many ways you can patch this and play this. And one of the nice things is this is meant from the get-go also to work on iOS. All the other plugins I did with AudioThing that are on iOS were first desktop, and then we converted them to iOS. But now Lines is designed in a way that it fits perfectly on the iPhone, for example. And one thing that I like to do is it's a bit like I like to do similar things like you can do with the Bastel app. You know that Outsidify? Yes. Is it Outsidify?
Yeah, I made a video on it yesterday.
Yes. Yes. And so you can do similar feedback things with it. Just use it to make little noises and do stuff because there's this limiter in there. That was very, very important on the original to make it safe to do lots of feedback. And if you engage that on the plugin, the same, you get a very controlled way to create the feedback, especially if you shift the filters right. And yeah, so that's something which you can do similarly. And that's why we also inserted, a low-pass filter in the feedback path. Because oftentimes when you get feedback, there's these bursts of very high frequency stuff. So a low-pass filter helps to have this be less prominent and to basically tune in on lower frequencies so you can get nice lower resonances. And one thing where I think the iOS version is even better than the desktop version is that these action buttons I was talking about are easily reachable there. Phase It is something you're not gonna really hear unless you've got a feedback setup going. Then it switches drastically how you perceive the sound. And Amp It, it's just like just give it a little bit of boost to the amplitude, and that can be so fun rhythmically. And playing all three, it makes this, this is fun, this is very playable. Of course, there's no keyboard in here. That doesn't make sense because the frequency shifter is the main way you get the pitches. And frequency shifters, they create inharmonic signals. They're not pitch shifters in that regard. So putting a keyboard there would just mean to make it completely clangorous and noisy. It wouldn't make sense. So you just use the settings to shift the pitches. But what I like to do, and that's something you can maybe see in the presets, is, for example, use it's a very classic, from modular synthesis, very simple trick. You'll use a square wave LFO, and you use that to modulate the frequency, and then you can get intervals. So it goes like very simple way to get like octave bass kind of style things. And then you can shift that. And there's, of course, with automation, there's basically any pitch you can easily get. But of course, it will always sound a bit odd, clangorous. But that's the fun of it. It's not meant to be like like a standard instrument, because I just love to experiment. And I could, for example, I could do like a simple, like I could do simple, I don't know, but that's just as soon as the main motivation for me always is like, is this fun? Is this a fun experiment? And that above all like interests me. If there's just like things like, yeah, let's do this because it's easy and it could give money, I'm like, man, I'm not so interested in that. Can it be funny? Can it be like risky? Can it be wild?